I will count now from 1 to 15, and when I reach the count of 15, you will be in a state of no time, where time does not exist for you. And along the way, you'll reach focus 10, which is a state of complete relaxation. Focus 12 will be the state where you have fully expanded your awareness. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You're much more deeply relaxed and far, far more comfortable. And now we'll move to 12. And as I count up to 12, your awareness will expand far beyond your physical body, and you'll remain calm and be able to stay in communication with me at all times. 11, 12, 'Now in the state of focus 12, your awareness is expanding more and more, far, far beyond the confines of your physical body, and in non-physical ways. And now that you have gathered that, we move on to focus 15. 15, the state of no time, where time does not exist. You'll continue to hear and act upon my voice, and hear it very clearly and be able to communicate with me. 12, 13, 14, 15. Time now does not exist. Time is unimportant. You're in the state of no time, where time is not important. You're now beyond time and space, yet you're able to communicate very easily and carefully. You do hear my voice clearly, do you not?
Yes.
Good. Now we bring the question to you, for you to read and discover or find or obtain the answer. And this is the communication by means of impressions upon a magnetic tape in a recorder. Can this be done directly, other than voice communication such as we are doing now?
A contact was made before you asked the question. Yes, these communications can be made in many different ways. The recording is merely supplemental information, supplemental technique.
How is the technique best achieved?
This depends upon the circumstances, the individuals, I said plural individuals, and the particular time and substance.
Can this be performed with the equipment that we have here now? Can such an impression be made now upon our own magnetic tape that is recording at this moment?
The almost more important video part, of course, will be lacking by this type of recording. Therefore, the tape must contain only that information which is passed on through the mentality of the particular individual. If he is describing an impression or a picture or an area, the technique for transmission simultaneously of the video portion has not yet been worked out. This will require an tapping of the circuitry within the individual's own brain system to accomplish that type of thing. Therefore, at the present, other than the individual who is receiving it directly, the video portion is left out. However, there is no reason why several individuals cannot receive the video portion simultaneously. The verification then comes between the balancing of the description provided by the various individuals.
Yes, I see. And this is something that we should perform merely because of the different individuals would round the picture out, so to speak, or would give different perspectives of the same picture.
Exactly. Each individual's description of the same area will vary. In fact, he sees different things even though the area being viewed is identical.
In terms of such communication, what type of energy is being induced or applied when such communication between individuals at that level takes place? What is this energy?
The energy, the final energy, the final step down energy must be of the nature which relates to the individual's own circuitry, his visual system. This is not the basis for the original transmission, the communication. It must be stepped down to meet the particular capabilities of the individual's own system. To a large extent, this involves the circuitry around the eyes, which ties into the brain. This is used even though it is audio in nature.
Then what is the original energy that is used for the transmission?
The original energy as energy is merely the pipeline. It is the information that is carried by these energy systems that transmits the ideas, and this then largely is a mental process on the part of the sender. The communications, the energies, are merely the transmission technique.
But what specific energy is used by the sender to reach from his point to the point of the receiver?
This is mental energy on the part of the sender.
It is not electromagnetic or electrical or magnetic?
This involves a long discussion of various energy systems if you wish to follow that track. It leaves the communication portion.
I would think that it would be important to us to be able to understand as much as we can about this particular energy which you have labeled mental energy. It would seem from our point of view very, very helpful and constructive if we understood more about this mental energy, what it is, how to utilize it more directly at the conscious level, but most importantly, how it is generated and its rate of speed, its intensity, and whether it is a waveform, a field, or what. So yes, would you please?
This is correct. What you are asking for involves almost the entire creation process. It does not lend itself to a straightforward description because it involves all of the energies played together. There is something outside which is the individual, which is not mechanical in nature. It is the ability of an individual to actually manipulate together the many types of energies and form this into an idea. In itself, this is quite different than the carrier energy systems, the electromagnetic type of things which you are talking about. This is a different category than the electromagnetic carrier systems. And because it is different, it is able to put its impression onto the electromagnetic systems, but is not of them itself directly. All souls have more or less this ability, and it is carried on regardless of the immersion of the individual in the electromagnetic fields. That his human body is primarily electromagnetic in nature, in its various components, so that all of the ultimate communications through the human body, including the brain, does get down to electromagnetic nature. But this must not be confused with the third category, which we have been discussing as the mental, and that portion which relates to the creative process. The mental activities are largely creative in nature because they put together an idea, a picture, a concept, and hold this until the electromagnetic forces and energies can be frozen around it for transmission.
Yes. Is there a means by which we can apply more efficiently this mental energy?
Yes. Utilization, of course, controlled utilization is the prime technique for developing this energy. Another facet of this is the fact that this energy is multi-born by various entities. In other words, they are all in the same system simultaneously. They are all a part of the overall system. And this is why communication is really not communication, because they are already a part of the foreign, what appears to be a foreign system. Therefore, since they are simultaneously a part of the, from the terms that you have used, the communicant and the communicator are the same. Therefore, they are not basically communicating, but they are just making awareness of the information. This concept goes beyond the basic subject of communications from a descriptive method.
What we need, though, it would appear, is the thing that you have brought out, which is a more efficient, controlled utilization of this. How can we move in such direction?
The receptors must be developed and trained. If the receiver has not trained his system to tune in to this information, the communication, so-called, is not completed. The message is there, the information has been transmitted, is present, it is tappable and available, but the individual has not controlled his own system or developed the overall technique for managing his own system to bring in and transmit the information to, in the form of a communication to an outsider.
What is the best method to develop this within the individual? How can this be developed to a very fine and sharp tuning?
He must tune up his entire system, because it is all a part of the same thing. The sensors are many. The whole physical body system is a mass of sensors, and the training of oneself to receive in these many sensors simultaneously and beat this information into a common area to provide a communication with meaning. the whole system is, in this sense, as receiving system, is a part of the total receptor for the communication, and therefore must be developed. However, this is a matter of efficiency in receiving, and does not come to a point with a specific threshold where one receives and one does not receive. The main difficulty is that one receives simultaneously all impressions and has not trained his own system to meet these various channels and provide specific information in specific areas or categories or channels, and therefore confusion is more normal because all systems are putting out simultaneously, and the brain, which is the central computer system, has not been controlled or directed to provide specific communications. Many techniques are available for building up one's own ability to control his entire system selectively and improve it, and call upon it to function individually or totally according to specific directions. This, we have been talking about the receiving function, not the sending function of the communication.
What system do you feel is or do you know to be the most effective and efficient one to use in training this as a receiver?
As originally pointed out in this discussion, the desirable procedure varies according to the circumstances, the individuals, and the place, and other categories.
But at what starting point? Is there no common starting point?
Not necessarily a common starting point, because no individuals are the same, no circumstances are the same, no locations are the same, and no objectives are the same. These vary and must be built up according to the desires and background. One must use those energy systems and those things are available to him. It would be useless for one to point out that there is a very highly developed system for developing the totality of the individual, but it is not at this time available everywhere to all individuals.
And then perhaps we can be very specific. Here I am, a living entity. How can I, from where I am and what I am, how can I improve my system?
The technique of utilizing your system and building up any portion of that system which is a deterrent is the factor. All individuals, each individual has different deterrents in his system for communication, and it is up to him to remove these deterrents or to improve or develop the factors which are important. Outside aid from others is extremely helpful in this regard, in that an individual without the deterrent is able to bypass the deterrent of the other individual and carry him forward or shunt around his difficulties so that he is able to control his system and advance. However, the key thing of every individual is that he must continuously tune up all factors and in his system and utilize his system. Without the utilization, it becomes neglected and non-functionable. Therefore, the things that you have doing and have done and are doing are very important, and all of these factors must be pushed as they become available to one.
Can you perceive my deterrence as I sit here now, as I exist here now? Can you perceive the deterrence in my way?
One could start upon you as an individual in an analytical method, but you as an individual already know these things.
Perhaps I do not know them at the conscious level, and I am using myself only as a test case in an illustration of these points.
The key thing, one key thing relative to the deterrence has been brought up, is the brain function, which must be differentiated from the mental processes and control factors that we have discussed previously. The brain is affected by all factors, physical, chemical, electrochemical factors within the body system. Therefore, any factor which tends to utilize the brain control system solely allows itself to be at the mercy of all physical chemical inputs to the brain, and is not able to get beyond this to a mental control of the entire system, including that exterior to the physical chemical system under the direct control of the brain. The mental system controls factors outside of the physical body, and the brain controls those within the physical body. Therefore, it is important to be able to be aware of both things simultaneously. And of course, the initial thing, if things affect the brain so that it puts a block between the physical body and the overall mental system, then the communication factor is very badly degraded. Therefore, the initial factor is to tune up all of the physical, chemical factors which relate to the brain so that it cannot function to block the overall mental processes, the transmission and reception of outside information.
How is this particular thing then performed?
By practice and pointing out to oneself those areas of blockages and improving upon them. But the main important thing is the practice in the exteriorizing of oneself beyond the things under the control of the brain, so that one can actually be aware of another existence beyond that which is within our close physical chemical system.
And what is the best method to do that?
Again, I've run into this best methods thing, which is never satisfactory, because, as I have repeatedly pointed out, there is no best methods except for the particular case. There is at a particular time the best path to take.
Well, then this is why I say here I am, an entity, an individual, utilizing me as a test case, as it were. What would be the best path at my here now for me to follow? Is this possible for you to describe this?
Well, this, yes, it is, but this involves an analytical procedure. We must put you on the analytical block to determine what are you, what are the many factors which compose you, which ones are in functioning normally, which ones are subnormal in their functions, and which ones are supernormal. The control at this analysis is what is normally done in all healing and development techniques. However, I am certain that you are more interested in the supernormal techniques than in improving the subnormal factors. The subnormal factors are the ones that hold back the development, the training, and the awareness of the supernormal one, as long as we are highly controlled and localized in our physical, chemical, material body system, including the brain which controls it.
Would you then, can you and will you then run me as a test case through this analytical system?
Do you wish this to be done in the future?
Yes, I would very much, because it may help in many ways.
This becomes personal in nature and should involve highly capable people to make the proper analysis. For any operation, whether it be this one or any of the other multiple operations, it is advisable to attract, to draw in the better or the best minds or capabilities that can be directed to the objective just as one seeks for a qualified physician or person in any particular application to put into it. So this brings us to the subject of how to conduct any particular investigation, whether it be on a individual or something else. This process is extremely important and also extremely common, although people are not aware of it. So to continue in such a field for any one individual, it would be advantageous to build up a contact, a background relationship with those sources of information which can not only make the analysis but can give the procedure, the recommendation for the improvement and cure, and thirdly, provide those necessary exterior forces, energy systems, which are needed to reorient the particular individual's system and redirect it.
Then
this is not something that is done at the spur of the moment by a thought process. It must be bring in the individuals to do this, and they must on their own analyze the importance of it as to whether it is a desirable thing for them to take the time to do it, and the objectives for that would be obtained by doing it.
It is then possible for us to put this into action, such an analysis. Where do we begin to do this?
By inviting in the individuals to apply to this. Again, this is the communication process that we have been talking about. If the overall communication, the desire is there, the individuals required to carry on this experiment will be attracted to the location and will make themselves available to cooperate. Again, to carry on this analysis, one must have beings who can be the in-between beings to carry on the communications between those who are non-physical and those who are physical.
Where are such beings?
Such beings are all over. Some but few apply themselves to this type of thing.
Can we start such attraction or attracting the interest of such minds or individuals? Can we start now and let it move on into other periods?
Yes, of course. The discussion that is beginning to take place is the automatic outlining of what I have been proposing. These ideas that are coming through because of a question that has been put out, which has brought in the environment into the environment those who are aware with the particular subject under investigation. So the question, if any answers are being received, is the automatic start of the total operation.
Then can we assume that at a future period, or at another period, that other minds will join in this form of analysis?
Possibly that is largely up to you. If you reverse the process and set yourself as a goal the idea of joining already existing groups that are set up to accomplish specific ends, then you are gaining the advantage of their multifaceted operation and are stepping in with them. To do the reverse, to set oneself up as an individual and try to control multifaceted individuals into your particular desire, requires that that desire be greater in overall objective than the work of the group themselves. It is normally easier and more workable and more productive to join a group of individuals who are already working on a problem rather than to try to swing them to one's own individual and possibly not continuous or planned desires.
Do you know of such a group? Is there such a group existed in this physical matter reality of the earth?
Oh, many. This question seems to be out of place in view of what we have been talking about more or less continuously.
I was uncertain as to whether, when you spoke of such groups, whether you were speaking of groups not of this earth sphere, this earth environment, or groups within it.
No, I was speaking of the groups outside of this earth environment who are brought in to it, because you are asking for things that are and techniques for carrying on things which are outside normal use.
That is true. The point is that we are forming, we trust, a group here that could join such a group in a common purpose.
Right.
What we need to know is how then we can get in touch or become in communication with a similar group not in this earth environment.
The communication, the getting in touch, is, as always, the communication into a specific area, the desire for a specific area, which attracts those entities and individuals who are closely associated with that area. The mere mental process of building up a category and trying to carry on this category attracts those entities which are also closely involved in that category. And this is the danger of it too, because many entities who are in not in physical bodies, are in the same category and are merely attracted because an idea is close to their own mental processes. And in many cases, they may not have any additional abilities beyond certain things that attract them. Therefore, it is, again, very important to pick out some objective which is more universal and in which many entities are working to accomplish an end.
I understand, yes. You said that you had proposed such a pattern. Where are you now? In what system are you a part of?
I jump from one system to another as the questions are directed, which is the thing that I have been describing. The questions, a new question, a new area, throws out the entities that have been working in one area and tries to attract new entities for the particular category.
But you yourself, are you an individual?
Why, I am in touch, have the capability of being in touch with many, many factors and many, many individuals according to the instructions that you laid out at the beginning of this discussion, in which you invited me to and develop a sphere beyond and encompassing the total.
Yes. But you stated that you proposed this, and as you proposing it, to what end would you propose this?
That I propose, this is confusing to me. At various times, various concepts have come through for different things, depending upon the area that we have projected ourselves into, and
I had noted that you had used the pronoun I in some discussion.
You asked, where am I now?
Yes.
And the I that you're referring to, I assume, was this individual, Lawrence.
No, I was referring the one beyond Lawrence.
The one providing
the information.
The information. The entity, the system, Lawrence, as it is asked to step forth into some particular category, steps out and meets with these other groups who are in the system which is being reached for. Therefore, if you asked where it is, it varies continuously from one system to another, depending upon the seeking that is being conducted. It is never, except as you have the ability to concentrate on one subject, it is never entirely located at one place.
Therefore, it is switching from system to system, as it were.
Yes,
I see.
Because it is multifaceted and has all of this within its system simultaneously. It is merely reading out particular portions of it as the questions are put forth.
And this is a portion of Lawrence's system then that is doing this.
Lawrence's system is merely only reaching out and contacting the total system where this information that is desired is located.
And then it in itself, where the source of the information, though, is other individuals and other entities.
Yes, or other information can be there in outside of individuals and entities also, you understand?
I appreciate, yes. Mm-hmm.
In other words, there can be places or instruments and many things which exist, have been developed and exist, which are basically not described of as an entity or an individual.
Therefore, can Lawrence's system, for example, reach forward in what we label as time and see in our serial event structure in the earth what are the events to appear, say, in 1 month of our time from now?
Yes, it is possible to do this to a certain extent, in that one can read the forces that have been gathered together, because the forces that cause events in the future are already here and working together, and these can be indicated, if allowed to continue in their existing path without other changing factors, would result in certain things, so that the probabilities can be read.
In that end, and to that end, is it possible to see any probabilities in terms of any major changes in our world, earth, culture, or physical structure, say within the next 20 of our years?
You realize that you have now asked that we completely throw out all of the categories that we have been developing in this session and start out onto an entirely new concept, new subject for discussion, which would require us to bring in new context, new areas to answer the questions. It is quite feasible what you ask, but it requires a complete destructive reorientation to a new category.
I understand. This was not my intent to have this. I was merely filling in a portion of data that had occurred to me as I try to perceive the fullness or the extent of such communication that we have now. That is all. That is not I do not propose that we enter and have a reorientation at this time. As a matter of fact,
yes. But if from a strictly question-answer standpoint, does that type of thing that you ask can be performed? But again, it should be performed with an objective in view, rather just from a curiosity.
I appreciate it, but I needed to round out as I will slowly round out and understand the breadth and scope of such communication.
This communication process has no is completely available to apply to all subjects. This is where the mental process comes in, and where the training comes in to concentrate in one area until one is able to bring in enough of the important factors in that area to get an answer. The jumping from one area to another is destructive of any specific answers.
Yes, I see that this would be the thing. I only related it as to the communication factor rather than the performance of that
Right.
at this period. We will then take their session, this question of a total analysis of myself as a case study. Although I do realize that this is a very limiting factor, it might provide our conscious minds with some clues as to how to proceed forward in other areas. Thank you very much for the communication and for the discourse. And may we join you again on Wednesday of our time. And we will do this as we go. Now, Lawrence will. John will move slowly down back to full conscious reality. You will move easily and comfortably, fully relaxed. And when I reach the count of 1, you'll be fully wide awake and alert, completely refreshed, re-energized, full of vital energy, rested and relaxed, but fully wide awake when I reach the count of 1. 15, 14. You're now out of the area of no time. Time now has meaning again for you. Time now has meaning again. 13, 12, and now in the state of expanded awareness. As I move down in the count, you can then move your awareness back into its normal, natural condition. 11, your awareness is moving back more and more. 10, you're now deeply relaxed, moving towards conscious wakefulness. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are fully conscious awake, back in physical reality.
Okay.
All right, John.
Everything's fine.